Yay! We are live. Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome on this leap day, bonus day of the year. I was trying to explain or talk about leap year with the little 3-year-old that I watch. And he doesn't get it because he barely gets yesterday and tomorrow, right? So he's like, so I'm like, yeah, it's like a bonus day in our year that we don't get every year. And then I was asking him what he wants to do for quiet time. He's like, let's make a bonus day because we're really into cutting out pictures from magazines and making collages. And so he's like, let's make a bonus day picture. I'm like, well, what would that look like? He's like, just sky and bushes. I'm like, okay. He's remembering because they're all National Geographic magazines. So he's just remembering what are in the magazines, right? Let's just make a picture of a day. Yeah. We didn't end up doing it, but I just thought that was cute. I'm like, well, what should we do to celebrate our bonus day? It's like, make a picture of a day. Like, oh, okay. 3-year-old brains are kind of cool.
I'm 41 years old and I don't think I understand leap day.
I know, right? It's just I needed an extra day of February this year, so it's okay. Yeah. I'm okay with it.
But I spent my day cleaning, which is good, but also feels like a waste of an extra day.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Not exactly how you want to spend it, right? Didn't feel any different to me really either, but it was fun to talk about it with a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
But here we are to talk about the Screwtape Letters, the last half of the book, starting in chapter 16, and we'll go all the way to the end, including Screwtape proposes a toast, even though the 3 of us didn't really care for that part very much, but we'll bring it up. We'll see. But yeah, I'm going to have Chantel and Rainey introduce themselves. Again, just in case any of you don't know them, their channels should be linked in the description. If not, I will check it later and make sure that they get linked there. But yeah, maybe tell us what has been a highlight of your last 2 weeks, Chantel. It could be small, it could be big, it could be whatever you want.
Okay, well, I'm Chantel. My channel's Chantel Reads All Day. Lately, I've been in my fantasy era. My reading tastes I just go hardcore into a genre, and that's what I'm doing right now. A highlight of the last couple of weeks. That is a stumper. It's been a rough couple of weeks. So
sorry.
No, it's all good. It's not your fault. I don't think I have a highlight though.
Well, that's okay. Totally fine.
Some weeks are
yeah, for sure. How about you, Rainey?
Okay. Oh, okay. So I'm Rainey from Rainy Day Reads. And let's see. The highlight, I can't even remember the last 2 weeks pretty much, but I guess the highlight will be coming up actually. Tomorrow, my college friend that I haven't seen in a few years is coming to visit for the evening. And then another college friend who is my roommate in college, and we have seen each other because she only lives a town over from me, but she's going to meet us for dinner. So we're going to have a little college reunion. So that'll be nice.
I love that.
Yeah. So hopefully it'll be a highlight.
Yeah.
We'll see, I guess.
I love that. It's fun to connect with old friends. I think that's cool. I hope you guys have a good time. That should be nice. I would say my highlight is the virtual reading retreat that I host with Lindsay's Little Library, Amanda from from On the Middle Shelf, and Sarah's Nightstand. Sarah from Sarah's Nightstand. The 4 of us host a virtual reading retreat. This was our 4th one, and it went really well. I always feel really tired at the end. Some of the girls were saying they didn't feel as tired as past retreats, but we feel like it went really well. So that's always good when it goes well. And I did my part really quickly afterwards, like the thing that I have to do for the wrap up, and got it all done this week and ready to switch gears now to middle grade March, which is very exciting. And Amanda and Katie are flying here to Virginia, and we're getting together this weekend. So I'm very, very pumped to see them in person. So again, that'll be another highlight. But it's coming up. It starts. I won't see them till Saturday, but I'm going up to DC to the DC area where I have a cousin who lives there. So I'll stay over with her before picking up the girls from the airport. So should be fun. But we have a lot of chapters to discuss. And feel free in the comments if you have a highlight from the last couple of weeks. I would love to hear that. It's always fun to hear what everyone's been up to. Susan is here, and Jennifer, hi. Susan, and Lisa, Katie is here. Happy leap year, she says. Oh yeah, Susan said your book Unhauls. That's a highlight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's helpful for moving.
I love doing unhauls. I have one more that's filmed already that I haven't even started to edit yet. So I love them, and people seem to really enjoy them as well. So it's kind of fun.
I feel like I love watching them, but I feel really awkward filming them.
Yeah, it's a strange thing to film. Sure. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. But it does feel good to clear some of the clutter off the shelves. By clutter, I mean books, but but it just feels good to be more excited about what stays on the shelf. I like that feeling. And I did
middle grade March. Oh, my entire middle grade March PBR is from my shelves. I just put everything that I have collected off my shelves, and I'm like, we're just gonna read these.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. I have just 2 graphic novels I picked up from the library, but everything else is from my shelves. So that'll be good. All right. We have a few more. Elizabeth and Tammy. Hi, guys. And Judy and Jennifer. Welcome, welcome. All right. So what we're going to do is similar to last time. We're going to kind of take it in chunks rather than go chapter by chapter, because there are 31 chapters and we're starting at 16. So we're not going to go like chapter by chapter. Like I said, we're going to do in chunks of 5. And I have this handy little chart that is from the C.S. Lewis Institute, which I should have linked in this one as well. I think I just kind of copied and pasted from the last one. If not, I will double check that afterwards. But yeah, this is just a little overview of the theme for each chapter. So we'll start with 16 to 20. Well, first of all, did you guys feel the same about this second half of the book as the first half? I know, Chantel, this is a reread for you, right?
Yeah.
Rainey, is it a reread for you or your first time?
It's a reread, but I feel like the first time I read it, I was like in high school thing. So
yeah. I only asked because I feel like I was more able to get into it, if you will, in the first half. I really struggled in this second half. And partly it was because I was rushing to get it done, but mostly it was just Screwtape proposes a toast. But like, I feel like more often in the second half, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what's going on? Whereas in the first half, I feel like I was able to get into the language and the feel of it a little bit easier. I don't know. Did you guys have a similar, or were you like fine?
No, I liked or felt like the first half was more relatable.
Yeah.
Personally.
I felt like I had the same experience as far as like what it felt harder to kind of understand his points.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of sections in it that I felt were really relatable to me, and like I have been and
sure
we are still in. So like there are a few things that I thought, okay, this is relatable to people who like really are Christians, but they are still struggling, and the devil is still trying to get hold of us for that. But yeah, I felt like it was hard.
Discovered the Cliff's notes for it tonight, like right before. I'm like, man, I wish I finished like in 2 hours ago so that I could have had time to kind of go through each chapter with the Cliff's notes, because I feel like it was really helpful to read a summary. And I wish I had that kind of side by side as I was reading it, to like read through a chapter, or like even read the Cliff's Notes first. And then, because I was listening and reading in tandem for the most part. But yeah, I kind of struggled a little bit more with the second half. Jeanette said the same thing. I would have never finished if it weren't for this book club. Yeah, I feel like I probably would have DNF'd this again. Like, I'm just glad that I finally read it. Like, it's done. I think I started this book multiple times. I do feel like, yeah, I maybe would read parts of it again, but I don't know that I'd sit and read the whole thing from beginning to end again. I don't know. The language arrangement was definitely difficult at times. Had to reread many paragraphs to have it make sense in my head. Yeah, I feel like I had to apply a lot of work to understand parts of it. Judy, I feel like I'm just not smart enough to get it.
I don't think that's it. I think
I don't think that's it either, but
yeah. Although I would be interested, because I really have not read as much C.S. Lewis as I thought I had. And so I would be interested to see if like his other nonfictions are written this way.
Yeah.
Or is just trying to make it this way because of Screwtape.
Sure.
Yeah. So
I mean, I've read Mere Christianity.
Yeah.
And I love Mere Christianity.
Yeah.
That one too, though, that's his radio talk. So it might be different, right? Then.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, true. Yeah, the audio was good of this one. I will say that. I loved having, because you could hear him like chuckle at times, or like when he was being sarcastic, you could really hear that in the tone of voice of the narrator. And I did appreciate that very much. Second half is more challenging, but it goes into deeper theology.
Yeah.
Maybe the annotated version. Well, that's cool. Mary Lou read the annotated one this time around. That would be a cool way to read it. The narrator was amazing. Yeah, agree.
Yeah.
Great Divorce, I've heard, is really good.
Yeah.
But I haven't read it. Four Loves is excellent, really dense. This one was more entertaining.
Okay.
The one
I've heard that from people too, that his others are more dense.
Yeah. I think this happened to me too, Katie. Like, I would just let it go. Like instead of being real intentional about being in the book while listening, I might do Happy Color for a few minutes and just kind of listen, but like not really. And that didn't help either. But
in March, I want to read, it's upstairs. I think it's called Letters to Malcolm. And it's letters, and it's written in letters, and it's about prayer. So I feel like it's kind of the opposite of this. It's all fiction.
Okay.
Like the letters are fictional, but I'm curious to see if it feels like similar but opposite.
I don't
know.
No. Yeah, because I feel like obviously the Narnia books are not hard to understand.
Sure,
so not at all. So it's not like he always talks like that. So I would, and I know people in my real life that really like reading C.S. Lewis, but it's not like something that I would just, if all I'd ever read was Screwtape, I would be like, you guys like to read this? Like, how did you even understand it? Not like that they can't understand it, but just that I don't think they'd have the patience for it.
Right.
You know, but
all right. Well, anyways, let's get into the chapters. So we'll do in groups of 5. So 16 through 20. So 16 talked about church hopping. 17 was more about gluttony. 18 and 19 were sex and love. And then 20 added marriage to that mix. And then 21, pride and peevishness. How's that for a 1960s word? Peevishness.
Very British of him.
Right.
Now, church hopping was the first one that I thought was kind of relevant to me, because I am a church hopper.
Yeah.
Not so much anymore, but I have in my life. I mean, I think I finally found a church that I like, but and I've been there for a few years, but
good.
I've been to pretty much, it seems like every church in my community.
Well, and church hopping is such a major thing these days. I was surprised, even though I've read this before, I apparently just didn't take as much in before, but I was surprised to find church hopping in here, to think this was written in the 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like I didn't think that was really, I didn't think about that being a thing back then.
Mm-hmm. Especially in like, I mean, I don't remember exactly where C.S. Lewis, well, Oxford, I guess. So like, yeah, that was a big college type town, but you would think just like in most like rural British towns, they would have only had one or two options for churches. So yeah, you wouldn't have thought that would have been as big of a deal back then.
Yeah. It does feel relevant now, though, because of the focus on personal satisfaction rather than on worship, right?
Yeah.
Like the whole idea behind church hopping is to find a place where I feel like it's a good fit, not necessarily about how or about worship, about God centered anything.
Right.
Like, and that's why it's in here, but I mean, that's why Screwtape is encouraging him to use this tactic, but also why it's still relevant, because I feel like that's our culture. Western culture is very self-centered in a way. Like, yeah.
No. But at the same time, like, and maybe this is just me showing my self-centered culture ingrained in me, but like, I feel like you have to, like, you can't, I don't know, if a church doesn't feel like it's doing the things that you need it to do, like, wouldn't it be better to leave that church? Like,
yeah, well, I mean, the two churches he described, like, one of them, the pastor didn't even believe in God, really. And the other one he believed, but he was so frivolous that, like, neither was really a good choice.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you do want to find a church that is preaching the Bible and but I mean, he talks in here about indifferent things like candles and what people are wearing and whatnot. But like things that don't matter being reasons to stay or go shouldn't be an issue. But 100%, you need to find a church that matches what your belief system, matches your belief and I mean, that's why a statement of faith of a church is one of the first things you should look at. Like, what do they actually believe and what are they teaching here? And do I agree with it? 100%. And then, yeah, I do think that it's helpful to find a church where you feel like you can fit. I know when I moved here to the Richmond area, this is the most diverse place I've ever lived. And I was very intentional that I wanted to find a church that reflected that. I didn't want a church that was all white people or all people of the same economic bracket, like, or all 30 somethings with kids. Like, I wanted there to be a lot of different kinds of diversity. And that's what I found. Thankfully, thank God I found that, because that's something that was very important to me living in a place that's more diverse than anywhere else. I wanted it to feel authentic in that way, in addition to being Bible teaching and worship focus. Yeah. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think like our first priority should be making sure the church is gospel centered.
Sure.
If it's not, it shouldn't really be an option. Then from there, if you have like preferences in regards to type of music or like things that don't really matter, if there's two gospel centered churches and one has the kind of music you like or has the programs you want, it's a fit.
Yeah.
But I think going to a gospel centered church is the top priority. Yeah.
Right. Sure. And I like this distinction Jennifer makes. There's a difference between church hopping and church shopping.
True. Yeah.
And then Mary Lou Lynn says, one is the discerning and the other is judgmental. Oh, that's good.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
Christy's in the house. Hello, Christy.
Krista, I wish our churches were more diverse here.
Yeah.
I feel like every time there's a influx of a certain people group, they start their own church.
Sure.
So then everyone, like, we have like
Yeah.
Filipino churches, and it's like,
Mhm.
I just want, because my kids are multicultural.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, like, I want more people
Yeah.
that look like them to come.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a hard thing to force. You can't
Mhm.
really force it. So I'm very thankful to have found a place where it's just naturally
Yeah.
very, very diverse.
That's
And I
awesome.
love it. I love it. Literally, like people off the streets and people with like their hats and three-piece suits and
Mhm.
everything in between. So like economically diverse. We have all sorts of different colors. Like, yeah. It's a very cool place that I found. So I'm very that God led me to. I'm very thankful.
The thing I wish my church had more of was single men in their 40s. But we'll just.
Right.
But I I digress.
I love it. So then we get into the period of life for our patient where he's like moving towards relationship, but I guess first is gluttony, right?
Mhm.
And the difference between, I think it was like gluttony of excess is what we normally think of, just like
Mhm.
give me all the food. I always picture gluttony as food. It doesn't always have
Yeah.
to be food. But this one, they were kind of, he's like, don't do the obvious, but like go for making him more particular about the
Mhm.
things he likes. And like,
I thought that was interesting.
yeah, it
That
was
would
a
have
it
never.
was a different take of gluttony than what I'd heard before. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I would think that more of being judgy, like more judgmental than
Yeah.
any. Oh, you're eating too much. I need to eat less than you so that I feel better than you, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I don't know if personally I would have put that in the gluttony category, but I know I understand where he's coming from.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess because it's like I like that he calls it false spirituality, to have this like I'm not going to have all of this, but I just want the best
Mhm.
of the little bit that I'm going to have, and it's I don't know.
Yeah. Mm.
I don't know.
Yeah. This section was one that I was kind of like, I don't feel like it's relevant necessarily. I mean, yes, can I have gluttony once in a while? Yes.
Mhm.
but I just kind of felt like this was like, okay.
It's interesting thinking like he's writing this in the middle of World War II.
Mm.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm sure that was a lot more, if people were being gluttonous about anything, it was probably a lot more pronounced than we would think of it today.
I'm just reading the comments here. Oh, this is back to the church one.
Oh.
Not spend so much time looking around, but put your attention looking up to God. Love that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Going to churches with active elderly members always attracted me. Now I'm one of the elderly. Oh, me. Yeah, it was more about the attitude, right?
Mhm.
And he brings it up again later, just kind of thinking you're better than.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And being kind of like a pain in the rear about stuff. Like, take that away.
Yeah.
Or he was describing that one lady.
Too much for me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Far too much. Take it away and bring me a quarter of it. Okay, now we get into the part where it's talking about like romantic love first and sex, and then love gets added to it, and then marriage in the next one. So like these 3 chapters kind of build on each other. I'm trying to I have some things underlined. Let me find them. Excuse me.
That's it.
That was obnoxious. I apologize. That was really loud. Should have muted first.
Sometimes it just happens.
chapter this is. Chapter 18. This one really got me. It says, now comes the joke. The enemy described a married couple as one flesh. He did not say a happily married couple or a couple who married because they were in love. But you can make that human ignore that. That was like, ooh, that's a good point.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's hard for me as a single person to like really comment on that part of it that much, because like anytime I've ever dated somebody, it's been really happy until it wasn't, and then we didn't, continue. So but yeah, I'm sure it would be a totally different ball game to be like, we're having this really rough time right now and I don't really like you, but I'm one flesh with you. Yeah, I'm not sure how I would handle that. Hopefully well, but we'll find out someday, maybe, hopefully.
I thought it was interesting that at one point, I think it was in the next one about love, that if we could just find out what he's up to, thinking about the enemy, like Screwtape was talking to Wormwood about the enemy, who we know is actually God, but like that's like they just can't comprehend the fact that the enemy actually loves humans. Like he actually loves us. God actually loves us. Like, and the demons can't understand that. Like, what is that about? We know that there's something about that. Like they have this feeling like there's just something that just doesn't seem right. That doesn't sit well with us. We know there's something there. If we could only find out what he's really up to. Hypothesis after hypothesis has been tried, and still we can't find out. We must never lose hope.
That's funny how he's like, we can never lose hope. Like really, that's kind of what we say.
All his talk about love must be a disguise for something else. He must have some real motive for creating them and taking so much trouble about them.
Sometimes I feel like we think that too. Like, what's
100% we do, right? Like, God can't love me because XYZ. Like we put stipulations on it. Like I haven't prayed enough, or I haven't done my devotions enough, or I haven't done this, that, or the other, or I'm not going to church, or whatever. I screamed at my kids, or whatever. Like we put all these kind of things on stipulations on God's love. But we were just talking about this in my small group last night, or Wednesday night. Oh, yeah, that was last night. When Jesus was baptized by John, it was at the very beginning of his ministry. He hadn't been doing miracles and like leading tons of people to the kingdom of God. He'd been really doing nothing yet. And that is when the heavens opened and God said, they heard the voice saying, "This is my son, in him I am well pleased," or whatever the words are in your version. But like God was pleased with Jesus before he did anything. And the same, it's kind of like with us, like he doesn't require anything of us. And I think that it's kind of fun to see the opposite side, looking at it from the demonic side, saying, I don't get that. Like, we don't get that. Of course you don't get it. Like, we don't get it either. We get to receive it, but we also don't get it sometimes. Oh, I love seeing love as a cause of marriage and not its outcome. Is something that hit.
Cool. I like that.
And I think obviously, like most of us, we get engaged and stuff because we're so in love, and I just wonder how many of us, especially maybe if we're young when that happens, really think about like, 30 years from now, how am I going to feel? Like, am I still going to have this feeling? And everybody will tell you no, but obviously you can't see into the future. So
well, yeah, and we've just been like inundated by all these reality shows, which I love to watch, even though I know they're not reality, but the whole focus is that feeling,
Mm-hmm.
right, of being in love. It's not about the commitment or how well you communicate or how well your values line up. It's just all based on, I just feel blah, blah, blah. Like that, it's all based on that feeling, which isn't something like that. That's not what love is. Like,
Right.
it's fun for the moment and it should be, but it also there's so much more depth to love than just that initial spark of attraction that feels good in that moment, right? Like, it's so much more to it than that.
I
Mm-hmm.
always say that love is a choice.
Mhm.
Like, you can choose to love.
Yeah.
It's not a feeling. You might not like someone on a certain day, but you still have chosen to love them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
or you still do each day choose to love them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Screwtape's version of those reality shows is like, feed him on, if he's a gullible man, feed him on minor poets and fifth-rate novelists of the old school. And so you've made him believe that love is both irresistible and somehow intrinsically meritorious.
Mm-hmm.
Like, make him think that love is not what it really is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He even says here that the state of falling in love is not in itself necessarily favorable either to us or to the other side.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
In which we and the enemy are both trying to exploit.
Yep.
No.
I did think when we talked about how we felt about this section as opposed to the first section,
Mhm.
I did think that Screwtape was a lot funnier in this section because he was just getting increasingly more irritated
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
like and like getting so worked up that he didn't even know what he was saying half the time, and then he'd get all like nervous that he said something wrong.
Yeah. Well, and he did. I mean, we'll get to that,
Yeah,
but he did cross the line and Wormwood
right,
turned him in.
right.
Like, he turned into a caterpillar. Like, what? What? Did I just read that right? Bizarre. Too funny. What chapter is this? Oh, in 20. I just appreciated the intentionality, but like, I just was thinking about our culture and the how culture determines what is beautiful, right? And not individuals ultimately. And he's like, feed into that, like, make him think that this is beauty and that even sexuality is based on the role of the eyes and what you see and not necessarily what's in your heart. Make the eye more and more important, and at the same time making the demands of what the eyes are seeing more and more impossible. Like, there's such a standard for what is quote unquote beautiful, but yet real women don't fit that standard because it's all edited and cropped and whatever. Like, it's not reality for the most part. Yeah, but I'm like, that is true. They did that. Wormwood and Screwtape, they did that.
Yeah.
They thus aggravate the female's chronic horror of growing old with many excellent results.
Love it.
I now have horror of growing old, but it's not for looks' sake. It's just I have too much experience with people that are not growing old well that I'm like, oh no, I do not want to get to that point.
Yikes.
I think that's something to this is totally off topic. That's something to think about at this age, though, is like, how do you want to grow old? Because sometimes when I see people, I'm like, oh, that's not how I want to do it. But then, like, so how do I want to?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Oh, going back to the gluttony one, this Jen said, it reminds me of people going out to eat after church, talking about their service while being rude to the wait staff.
Oh, yeah. Mm.
Yeah. Love is a
I've
verb.
heard many. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You've heard many what?
I have heard many a waiter saying that the after church crowd on Sunday are the worst tippers. And
That's so sad.
it is.
That's
Like,
really
not that I think you need to go overboard for tipping, but you need to like be a normal tipper.
yeah. Interesting that Screwtape used endearments when talking to his nephew. Empty words coming from him. There's no feeling. Yeah. My dear Wormwood, always. My dear Wormwood.
Yeah. You're affectionate, uncle.
All right, let's do 21 to 25. So we're talking about 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, this is the one. Pride and peevishness. And then love and Jesus in 23. 24 is godly influence. And 25 pleasures and the same old thing. Like fashion, novelty, whatever.
Pride and peevish. I forget. I just reread this and I already forget.
Yeah, chapter 21, like we're close to the beginning here. I had to read this section out loud to my family because we have a few hardcore introverts in my house.
Yeah.
Now you will have noticed that nothing throws him into a passion so easily as to find attracted time, which he reckoned on having at his own disposal, unexpectedly taken away from him.
Uh-huh.
It is the unexpected visitor when you look forward to a quiet evening, or the friend's talkative wife. Yeah, that's me. If I think I have something going on or nothing going on, like, and things change, I can be very peevish. To use the word here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that was me at work today. I had to stay late because boss people needed something done, like right that second. And I was like, but I'm not getting paid overtime. And I could probably if I asked for it, but like, yeah, I was really mad. And I wasn't the only one mad because it was a whole thing. But but like it was like 5 to 5, and I'm like getting ready to turning off my computer, getting ready to bebop home and have a night to myself. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you need to change all your plans.
It's like Bob Cratchit just about to get off his stool and go out the door, and then Scrooge is like, oh, 1 more minute.
Well, and I love on the other half of that, like this whole idea of like ownership and thinking that my time is my time. And he says, we produce this not only by pride, but also by confusion. We teach them not to notice the different senses of the possessive pronoun. And I love this graded, he calls it finely graded differences, run from my boots through my dog, my wife, my father, my master, my country, my God. And then it kind of puts it in like, I'm the owner of all of these things, but in kind of confusing that, like putting my boots in the same phrasing as my God can be confusing, right? Like I own my boots, I bought them, I paid for them, but God is not the same. Like God is not at my beck and call, but putting it in that same kind of phrasing kind of messes with our brains a little bit, or has the potential to mess with our brains a little bit. He says, meaning the God on whom I have, in quotes, the God on whom I have a claim for my distinguished services and whom I exploit from the pulpit, the God I have done a corner in. So it kind of, we do that sometimes, right? Like we come to God with all of our requests, forgetting to first like thank him or have any kind of gratefulness. Like, God, I need this and I need this and I need this. And then we get mad when things don't turn out the way that we prayed or hoped for. I'm speaking about myself. Like we have all these expectations and hopes for how we think God is going to move in a certain situation. And when that doesn't happen, we get frustrated and upset with him. But like, okay, that's like, who am I to tell God how to do things, right? Like prayer is supposed to help bend my will to his, not tell God what my will is and say, all right, this way, or I'm done, which a lot of people are that way. Like, oh, well, God didn't answer my prayers, so he must not be real. well,
Mhm.
really? Like, I don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like society wants a God that does what they want. They
Yeah.
don't realize what they're asking,
Right.
because then he'd be doing what everyone wants, and then
Right.
and who are we to even know what we even want?
Well, yeah.
Mhm.
That's not the kind of God we want to serve ultimately, right? Like, we don't want a God who bends to the will of every whim of everybody who's praying to him. Like, no. And Tony too, he found a girlfriend. He's fallen in
Good
love,
job.
and she's a believer.
The worst kind.
The worst kind of girl.
I loved the idea in this chapter about this family, this girl's family, having an odor which stinks to
Yeah.
Screwtape and Wormwood. And like how I talked about how the gardener's only been there for 5 years and this odor is starting to rub off on him. And it just gives such a good visual of how we can have an effect on those around us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It cracked me up that the dog and cat were also tainted with it, but
He was very sarcastic in this one. Filthy, insipid little prude.
He was. C.S. Lewis was having a day whenever he wrote this chapter.
Two-faced little cheat. Oh my goodness. Oh, I love the talk of music and silence too, and how they hate those two things.
Mhm.
Because they're something that God gives us for pleasure, the music, and I don't know. It described heaven. It bears a sickening resemblance to the description one human writer made of heaven, the regions where there is only life, and therefore all that is not music is silence. I'm like, ooh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
How I detest them both. Oh, and then that whole idea, like I, as an introvert, am very comfortable with silence. Learning to be more comfortable in conversation with silence, but like I often will just I don't have noise constantly going at my house. I know in some friends' houses, they just keep the TV going all the time just for the noise. I'm like, that is like stressful for me to think about. But then it talked about how hell is just noise all the time. Noise, noise, noise. I'm like, thank God I'm not going there. Like, I can't imagine. But like noise for the sake of noise, right? Like not just, audible expression of all that is exultant, ruthless, and I don't know how to say that, but virile.
Virile, I think. Yeah. Trying to find.
Keeps you from thinking, keeps you from feeling, keeps you from figuring anything out. Like it's just noise for the sake of noise. Ugh.
Yeah.
And then you think about how much more noise has been added to our society in the last 80 years.
Yeah.
Like I think Screwtape's got that going here. Just fill in noise everywhere. Can always be distracted.
It's kind of funny that this is the chapter where he's like, you could feel him like getting more and more worked up as the chapter goes on in the audiobook, especially like he just was talking faster and like getting more and more worked up. And then it just cuts off and like it's resumed in a different hand because he was turned into a caterpillar.
Oh, I have centipede in
or
mine.
Centipede. Yeah. That's
even worse.
That's grosser.
Oh my word.
The minute that came on the audiobook, I was like,
gross. What has happened? But apparently, because of how he said something about the love of God for humans. And that's what I forget what the reason was.
Let's see. It says, oh, Milton. I couldn't understand the narrator when he said who it was, but Milton, with the ridiculous addition that such changes in shape are a punishment imposed on us by the enemy. Oh, I thought it was going to say.
Yeah, I don't remember why, but
yeah, I don't remember why.
I think in one of the summary things, it was because of like in those chapters about love, something that he described the enemy as loving humans, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, I was talking to
something about that.
Yeah, I was talking to my friend Alicia, who said she is lurking here tonight, but we were talking about that. She's like, "Oh, you need to bring that up in the live. Like, why was he changed into a centipede?" And I was like,
"Yeah, did you guys catch that? If anybody in the comments?"
Yeah, I don't. I re-listened to it and I already forgot, but it was something like that he just got so worked up thinking about the love of God for us that.
Well, and then I think Wormwood had turned him in.
Oh yeah, that too. Or was that a different?
I don't remember where it was. I think it comes later, maybe.
Yeah, I think the him being turned in comes after that, but yeah, I think this one was he just got himself so worked up over the thought of.
Well, my annotated version says, like, after the Milton reference, it says, in Paradise Lost, the demons raged against God and were turned into snakes. So,
okay.
Centipede reference. And then there's also something about, right after the centipede, there's a reference to G.K. Chesterton here, too.
Yeah, Pshaw.
Oh. Okay, yeah, I wondered who he was talking about there.
Yeah, that was a satirical reference to George Bernard Shaw.
Okay.
Too funny. All right, so now I love this girl and her disgusting family. Oh, Mary Lou said he got so angry at Wormwood he lost control of his shape.
Yeah.
This 23 is about Jesus and kind of the difference between like the historical, like kind of trying to get him to focus on who Jesus was as a person. Like he's a great teacher, just like other great moral teachers, and try to not remember that he is. We thus distract men's minds from who he is and what he did. We first make him solely a teacher and then kind of connect that to other moral teachers.
Mm-hmm. It fascinates me that some religions can see Jesus as this great teacher, celebrate Easter, but yet not
fully understand.
Yeah, it's like, but how you're missing the point.
Yeah.
Well, and this chapter did talk about making Christianity as a means for social justice. Mm-hmm. And I see that a lot. I'll just say that I've seen that a lot where people are almost more concerned about the social justice side of things. And of course, I think that there's an importance on that stuff for sure. But it's like that Christianity, they like kind of twist things to fit whatever platform they're trying to stand on. Mm-hmm. And not because some of that's not true, but the focus is the social justice and not on what Jesus has done.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's another thing though that I thought, because like we hear like social justice is such a thing that we hear now So to hear it in this book from like the 1940s, I was like, oh, wow, that's
Yeah, right? It is something that we hear about so much now. It is interesting
Mhm. Just
to
that
put
term,
it in
and you know.
context, right?
Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, like the purpose of Christianity is not to make society great here and now. Like that's
Right.
not what it's for.
Yeah.
But the devil would like us to think that way
hmm
and just twist it enough.
And that's not to say that we shouldn't try to make things better,
Right.
but
Right.
you know.
Absolutely. And then I didn't really underline anything in spiritual pride chapter. But I know I've been there at
Uh-huh.
different seasons of my life, like where I just know the answers and I know all the things and I know how to put on the right kind of a face and answer the right kind of a way so people don't really know
hmm
what's going on, or I become judgmental of others because of, well, I would never
hmm
do that. I don't know, just yeah, I know I've been there.
Oh yeah, me too. I'm probably still there, to be honest. And
Majoring on the minors. Sorry, this is just from the last chapter. Majoring on the minors. Yeah,
yeah,
the social justice thing, like
yeah.
making that the important thing. Yeah. Sorry.
That's my lurker friend, Alicia, that I was talking about.
Ah, hello.
No longer a lurker.
Not
That's
lurking
right.
anymore. I called her out that way. She had to participate. Let's see. Let's see. I didn't highlight anything in this chapter either. Let's see.
And then, well, I just don't have much more about 24, but 25
I know.
talks about um this. Oh,
Oh,
you're still here.
okay.
It's like, oh,
Was that me? That was me. Okay.
yeah.
I looked up at the screen. I'm like, oh, it's black. That's great.
25 talks about the same old thing.
Yeah.
Like kind of the horror of the same old thing is one of the most valuable passions we have produced in the human heart. So this constant search for something new and novel and fresh and fashionable, and instead of just being faithful in the little things and in the deserts and in the wilderness when things are not, yeah, new and fresh and exciting.
Yeah.
But
It's funny because we're doing a series at my church, and I'm blanking on the name of the series. I don't, but one of the sermons was Jesus or Jesus but, or like it can never just be Jesus. Like it's always like I have to have something attached to Jesus, or like it's him or this thing. So yeah, I thought that I was like, oh, he must have been reading some C.S. Lewis, my pastor.
and I love his just his imagery of like they want to they're talking about confusing this guy to the point of distracting the attention of men from their real dangers. We direct the fashionable outcry of each generation against the vices of which it is least in danger and fix its approval on the virtue. Well, just the whole idea was like running. The game is to have them all running about with fire extinguishers whenever there's a flood and all crowding to that side of the boat, which is already nearly going under. Like, just like going to the, like rushing to the danger, but not being prepared. Like just causing that kind of confusion of like the novel thing, but knowing that there's a situation that you want to help with, but going in with the wrong thing. Exposing the danger of enthusiasm at the very moment when they're all really becoming lukewarm and worldly. I don't know where I was going with that, but I just liked the imagery of going to the flood with your fire extinguisher and rushing to the side of the boat that's already almost sinking. Ultimately, neglecting the relevant questions, neglecting the things that are really important, focusing on those things that are not. Sorry, I just don't have very much underlined in this.
I don't either. I was kind of trying to scan it.
I'm like trying to remember as I'm going. So.
I know. Me too.
Yeah, I don't think I had anything from those 2 chapters underlined.
But that brings us to the last 5, 6 chapters. We'll just do the last up till 31. So we're talking about unselfishness, prayer and time, getting older, the corruption of aging, twisted virtues, in particular hatred and cowardice, and then confusing what is false and real. And then chapter 31 is where our guy dies.
Spoiler if you haven't gotten it.
Spoiler alert. He doesn't make it. I thought that it was interesting in 26, the difference between what men and women think is unselfish, according to Screwtape, right? A woman means by unselfishness chiefly taking trouble for others, like taking on other people's stuff. And then a man means not giving trouble to others. So where a man might pull away so as to not get involved or to put their troubles on someone else, a woman is like in the situation, like, let me help with this. I'm like, I just kind of thought that was an interesting sentence. I didn't really process it all the way out. Like, do I really agree with this or not? But it's just kind of interesting because then ultimately they both are always going to think the other is selfish because they view unselfishness potentially. I haven't processed it all the way out to know if I agree, but according to Screwtape, then they both think each other is selfish because of the way that they view what unselfishness ultimately is. And he's like, let's feed on that confusion and let's feed.
Well, that I would say, just from like my experience talking with men, like men are always not all men, but a lot of men say how like dramatic women are and how like we're always upset about something and we're always getting mad about something, and then like on the flip side, women are always like, why doesn't he talk to me? Why doesn't he share his feelings? So like, yeah, I could definitely see where that would be the case because like as a woman, if a guy is just like not present, I'm thinking like he doesn't care, So, and that would be a selfish thing, but he might just not be wanting to hurt that person, So, yeah, I could see that. It's hard to see though, but I guess from a woman's perspective, like how you would think that trying to help you too much is being selfish. Like, I don't know.
I don't know. We'll come back to that question about other books like this. We'll save that for the end. I put a little star so I remember to come back to it.
Okay.
Some of the names, he ends this chapter. I wish Slum Trip It would do something about undermining the young woman's sense of ridiculous.
I'd like to know why he came up with some of these names. Like, does that mean something?
Right.
Yeah.
And then I think distractions during prayer is a very real thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's like, let's feed on that for 27, talking about prayer.
Yeah, this was another one that I feel like was really relevant to me because, like, in theory, I'm trying to be better about my prayer life. But do I make it a priority all the time? No.
Well, it's chapters like this that like they can help your prayer life, right? Because you can see where the enemy is going to try to keep you distracted and keep you. You're like, wait a minute, let me come back to this. Like, okay.
Yep. Exactly. Well, and was it in this chapter? Maybe it was an earlier one, but it did kind of talk about like just kind of doing the rote prayers and just kind of doing them to do it and having it be a checklist type of an item.
And calls it like false spirituality, right?
Yeah, right. And I feel like I can fall into that pretty easily. Like that it's just like a mark on my to-do list. Like, oh, I had my prayer time today, prayer journal today. You know?
Yeah, this makes me curious about his other book, like Letters to Malcolm, because that's chiefly on prayer, is the subtitle. So I'm curious to see where it all goes.
Well, that makes me want to read that now.
It's almost true that anytime I sit down to pray, I can count on my phone ringing.
Yep.
It's that darn Screwtape. Well, I think ultimately, like their desire is always to confuse and twist things, right? So they even talked briefly about the Lord's Prayer, where it talks about asking for our daily bread. But he's like, they're going to think that true prayer, in quotes, is only praise and just being with God, communion with God, where God specifically said, pray for your daily bread. Like, give us this day our daily bread. Like, that's specifically praying for the things that we need. Yeah. And he's like, let's just get them to think that that's not what prayer is about at all. Or if they pray that way, then they're not praying the right way or whatever. Their whole purpose is to just, Screwtape's constantly like, just make him think this, and then encourage this train of thought that's confusing and twisted and false. Yeah, that's the goal always.
Mm-hmm.
And then aging.
Oh, aging.
I loved this line that it says, prosperity knits a man to the world. He feels that he is finding his place in it, while really it is finding its place in him. Mm-hmm. That's in 28. Mm-hmm. Builds up a sense in him of being really at home in the earth, which is just what we want. Anything that can keep his mind off of eternity, right? Anything that keeps us from thinking about eternity and having that kind of perspective, anything that ties us here. They're like, feed that. Sorry. My
Were we
sister.
talking about prayer?
Yeah.
I know, right?
She just was having a visual aid.
That's right. Yep, I planned that perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can relate to that too, because if you like, anytime I just think about dying, or like, well, a lot of how I feel now is like, if I never get married, eventually, if I grow old, I'm going to be alone. And what do I need to like think about and all this stuff? And it just kind of like makes you really like dread the future. And then like, but then also like not wanting anything to change, because like it's okay right now, like
Yeah, yeah. No, I get that. I get
yeah.
that. Yeah. I don't remember anything about 29. I'm like, what?
Yeah, that one was a kind of a, I didn't really understand that one that much. If this is the one I'm thinking of, I was like, I mean, I get that like we're not supposed to hate anybody, but that's that's this one was one that like there were a lot of words that were
I
very.
thought it was interesting in this chapter, like they're talking about kind of like when they're doing well, then God will send an earthquake or something like that, and then people will be brave and like kind of come back to Christ, and then they got to start all over, and all their work is undone. And so often here we're like, oh, why is God letting this happen to us? This is like a bad thing, and yet Satan and the demons are thinking the same thing over there, but it's causing us to turn to God and to pray.
Yeah, I love he says, in peace we can make many of them ignore good and evil entirely. In danger, the issue is forced upon them in a guise to which we cannot blind them. So it's like when there's a trial of whatever kind, you're forced to kind of evaluate, what do you believe in this situation? Well, like, who is God right now to you, right? Like, you're forced to kind of confront some of these things that when things are going well or the same from day to day to day, you don't really, it's easy to get dulled by some of those deeper issues or conversations that have with yourself about who God is.
I'm reading a book by Sarah Clarkson, This Beautiful Truth.
Oh yeah.
It talks about like her struggle with OCD and all these things, and like because of the struggles she had in her teens, like she wrestled with questions that so many people don't, or not like not to the depth that she has had to. And like, well, I'm sure she doesn't love those times that she's gone through.
Right.
It's resulted in a deeper faith than a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know I have had those times and probably not had the preferable reaction to to those trials, but like now that I guess I'm like so far on the other side of it, like I can kind of see where I probably should have tried to react differently. And of course, like in the moment, you're not necessarily thinking that way, but yeah, definitely reading this chapter, I was like, oh yeah, I shouldn't have reacted that way.
Definitely when I look at my own life, like the times when life has been hard are the times that I've prayed the most. And then when life is easy, it's easier to feel like you've got it all down. You don't need prayer or
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love how he starts out chapter 30. I sometimes wonder whether you think you've been sent into the world for your own amusement. I gather not from your miserably inadequate report.
Oh, yeah, that the guy feels shame because he was scared.
Yeah,
And
afraid. Yeah.
yeah,
From the first blitz, the first
yeah.
raid. At any rate, you will soon find that the justice of hell is purely realistic and concerned only with results. Bring us back food or be food yourself.
Your affectionate uncle.
Right, exactly. We're going to get you, or you going to bring us food.
the one sentence I feel like was pretty much me today. It says moderate fatigue is a better soil for peevishness than absolute exhaustion. So I feel like that was me today. I was moderately fatigued, so I was very peevish.
Oh no.
Do you find this, Chantel, living with your husband? Do you find it says he said fatigue makes women talk more and men talk less?
Oh, that's a hard one because my husband doesn't talk much to begin with. I don't know. He doesn't. He never talks much. Probably less than not much, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
I talk a lot no matter what.
Well, and then in 31 he dies, and Screwtape is not happy about it because he ended up going to heaven.
Yep.
Died in the Blitz.
Yeah, I could have gone back and reread this chapter because that would have been like the yay chapter.
No gradual misgivings, no nursing home. No, he just went quick.
Yep.
How all his doubts became ridiculous. I love that. You're increasingly and ravenously affectionate uncle.
No.
Sorry, Wormwood.
Oopsie.
I like the visual. It said, this thing of earth and slime could stand upright and converse with spirits before whom you, a spirit, could only cower.
Huh.
I like that. He saw not only them, he saw him. This animal, this thing begotten in a bed, could look on him. What a blinding, suffocating fire to you is now cooling light is now cool light to him.
Yeah. Clarity itself.
Yep.
Wears the form of a man.
like, ooh, that makes me like, yeah, let's go there.
Yeah. Once more, the inexplicable meets us. Useless tempters like yourself. The greatest curse is the failure of our intelligence department. If only we could find out what he's really up to.
He just keeps going back to that. Sometimes I'm almost in despair.
Yeah, the guy that the human finally saw Wormwood, and the way he affected his life was free from him forever. Yep.
Yeah, I like the so it was you after all, or like whatever it was there.
Yeah. Can we just end there?
Yeah.
Talk about
I really think we need the toast.
it's technically it was written after, it was not written as part of Screwtape Letters.
Okay. Yeah.
Written kind of as an article for the Saturday Evening Post after the fact. It is definitely more political in nature than the rest of the book. And it lost me. Like, I was really far behind. Like, I do not know what you're talking about.
And I feel like it decreases the effectiveness of like that last chapter by having it in here. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they should probably just leave that out. I mean, I know.
I'll just glue my pages together.
Yeah, that's right. Well, somebody I think there is another one of this edition that's Screwtape Proposes a Toast and Other Essays or something like that. Where that one is separate from this as almost like a sequel, but also has other essays in it as well. That's in this
what is
edition, which is, I don't know, Harper 1.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Signet. What is this?
This is funny. This book appealed to the rebel in me. Except that they lose.
Yeah.
And then reading by Still Waters said, I love books from the view of demons and angels. Do you have any suggestions for more books from these views? Notorious was a movie that just came out that I loved. Well, I know not necessarily from the perspective of demons and angels, but the whole This Present Darkness and Piercing the Darkness from Frank Peretti definitely dives into the spiritual realm, and demons and angels are a big part of the story. But it's not from, you're still following human characters, but you see the spiritual warfare that goes on. So it's definitely a big part of the story. I don't know if I've read others where angels and demons are, I mean,
in the vein of This Present Darkness, and that there's a series. The first book is called The Delusion. It's a YA series where a guy can suddenly see the chains and things like that. So it reminded me a lot of This Present Darkness and Piercing the Darkness.
Yeah.
I can't read stuff like that because I live alone, and I don't.
Sure, it's it's crazy. I remember being very impacted by This Present Darkness and Piercing the Darkness. I mean, I was young. I was probably in my 20s when I read it. But it was like scary isn't the right word. It was a powerful read for me. Like just remembering that there is a whole nother side of life that we don't see with our visible eye, with our eyes. Oh, and then Alicia's
this has like absolutely really nothing to do with God, really. But I read, or I have been reading the Dresden Files, which I'm not necessarily going to recommend it because it has some sexual elements, but I like it. But I'm also, I got into it based on a coworker's recommendation, so now I'm too far in. But but there is a Michael the Archangel is a character, and there's also
Okay.
like um other angels
Yeah.
and obviously demons and things like that. And there is an element to that like these people are like watching the humans and things, and they don't see them, and they kind
Yeah.
of are orchestrating their life. But that's a little bit later in the book, in the
Right.
series, so you got to get through some of the other stuff first.
And then Alicia said, "This is random, but I'd love to have known how much of this book's topics were discussed with Tolkien, as he
Oh
had
yeah.
written for them." Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love that they were contemporaries. That's super cool.
Mhm. Yeah. I need to read. There's a play called The Last Session that is Freud and Lewis, because they were friends. I'm not sure if they were friends, but they were contemporaries. Um, but then there's also, I think there is a book about, probably more than one, about Tolkien and C.S. Lewis's
Steve
friendship.
Lewis. Yeah.
Yeah. And Freud, I think. And I mean, it's probably what The Last Session was based off of. I think it's a book as well on Freud and C.S. Lewis relationship,
Yeah.
which I think was really interesting because Freud was an atheist for much of his life. I don't know if he was always an
Yeah.
atheist,
I wonder
but
what those conversations were like. That would
yeah,
to be a
the,
fly on the wall, right?
the play was super interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, those books definitely show the power of prayer for sure.
Mhm.
Youth Pastor had us all read them. I love it. And then Katie has read Dresden and loved Michael.
Yeah, he's my favorite.
Awesome. Well, we are going to wrap it up. And thank you guys for joining me, Rainey and Chantel, and also all of you in the comments. Thank you so much for reading along for our first book of the year. Next up will be The Hiding Place by Corey Ten Boom in May. I don't know if I'll break it down half and half like I did this time. It's a little bit longer, but it's also more of a autobiography, I guess you'd call it, memoir.
Okay.
So it'll read a little, I don't know. I'll have to take a look at the book and see how it's divided up. It'll be a different type of a read because I've picked different ones this year. I think Adorning the Dark is the most straightforward Christian nonfiction. The other three are a little different, but it's what I was feeling. So that's what we went with this year. A little bit different. So yeah, hopefully it'll be good. And I have a different slew of people who are going to be joining me for Hiding Place. So it'll be kind of fun to have some different faces on here too. And yeah, Middle Grade March starts tomorrow. So grab Middle Grade books.
I already have.
I love
Thanks
it.
for having us.
You are so welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Judy and Mary Lou. And let me like this one that can be gone back through. Yeah. I agree. I do think I don't see myself rereading it anytime soon, but I do feel like I could read it again at some point.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see.
I think I pretty much read it once every 10 years. So
There we go. That sounds good. 10 years. I like that. I'll read it 10 years now. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining in, and we look forward to chatting with you soon in lots of places. All right. Bye.
Bye.